Call to order the workshop meeting for September 5th, 2023. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item we have tonight is an update on the single-use plastic study. We have Mr. Saby here from the EAB. Bill, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everybody. I think I've been here 3 times this year, haven't I? I'm going to dial in Farron Savage, who is our Penn Environment consultant. Is that speaker? Just hit this. Speaker. Hi, Farron. Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep, can hear you loud and clear. All right, I'm just going to bring up the presentation. All right, I think that'll work. All right. So our plastic bag study we've been doing since a year and a half ago. We started in February 2022 when we first met with Farron at our EAB meeting. And then we brought conversation to council roughly April last year, and also had Farron on the phone for that call. So we've been away for a year and a quarter. We've kept the momentum going, and actually the whole region has kept the momentum going. You can see now that we have 9 plastic bag bans in Montgomery County. I think last year it was 3 or 2. Narberth, in Philadelphia. So I think most of these have come on in the last year. And then we were just showing the closest state is New Jersey, and we mentioned Canada as a country. So the idea here was that we were talking about the idea that plastic bag bans are becoming more and more typical, normal, and not unusual, and that it's something that I think the majority of people who are environmentally conscious are really interested in reducing plastics in the environment. So that was really just to show you. And also this is now 23 across Pennsylvania, so there have been others in our region as well as across the state. So we have an ordinance which I forwarded through Karen, hopefully council received. It's based on the Penn Environment template, which has been standardized over the last year and a half. So most of the bag bans in our region are going to be based on this ordinance, and so you won't really find much of a variation across all of the ordinances. Our ordinance has a 15-cent fee for recycled content paper bag provided to the retailer. So the ban is to say that retailers will no longer provide single-use plastic bags. Customers are expected to bring their own reusable bag or another recycled bag, or to buy a bag from the retailer, or to pay for a recycled paper bag with a 15-cent fee added to their charge. The customer supplied reusable bag not to be single-use plastic, and the retailer sells reusable bags at their retail price. The idea of the 15-cent fee is that its purpose is to be a disincentive for people not remembering to bring their reusable bag. It also incentivizes the retailer to participate because it more than covers their cost of paper bags that they're going to be providing for their establishment. So it's actually a win-win for the retailer to have that 15-cent fee included. And this is consistent with White Marsh, and West Norriton have a 15-cent fee in their ordinance, so it's typical for our region. We are also adding to this single-use plastic bag ban a requirement that single-use plastic utensils and straws are only provided on request. They are not to be default given to the customer or made readily available just for the picking at the establishment. But there is no deterrent here. If a customer feels they want a straw or a plastic utensil, they can ask for it and it will be provided. But it's really just to start helping people think about their use of plastics, not to be a deterrent on their use. The enforcement is typically based on the other ordinances in our region, $50 first, second, 100, third, 200. And typically the enforcement has really been a very, kind of consumer reported situation where if somebody notices that a retailer is still giving out plastic bags, they can call the township and say, hey, I have this case where I see this retailer not giving out or paper bags or still using plastic. The next time the code enforcement officer is in that area, they can stop by, talk to the retailer. Usually there's a warning, and then we could have the first offense fee if they go back the second time. But it's really a casual process. It's not intended for the code staff to have to make this their primary duty. It's really going to be based on consumers reporting situations that they find, so we don't really intend this to be very strenuous on the township. As part of our study over the last year, we started off with a residential sewer bill mailing last April to 5,300 residents. And then we published a newsletter article last fall in the newsletter. We also sent a targeted business mailing. I believe it was, I can't remember offhand, it was 100 plus, maybe 200 business mailings. And this was targeted, meaning rather than just do a mass mailing to all businesses, there are quite a few businesses in Plymouth which are not considered retail, and it would have made sense. So we narrowed it down. I think Cal and I worked with your partner, I forget who, had the business list.
Yeah, it's trusted.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so we narrowed that down. We only got one feedback response from a business. So. And then the apartment mailing was another targeted mailing. We got a list of about 90 management companies in Plymouth and just mailed to those apartment mailings asking the apartment or the manager, the property manager to forward this communication either via email to their tenants or post on a bulletin board. We don't know how widely that was received because we didn't receive any real feedback during that process on our feedback form. And then we just sent out another sewer bill mailing in July, and we've received some feedback from that. I'll show you coming down. So in 2022, we received 115 responses, mostly residential. There were 2 businesses. And the intent of the feedback form is not considered a thorough survey. So the idea here was not to say that we're going to check with every single resident and make sure that we have a yay or nay from them. We expect that a feedback form is really just a chance to receive early comments so that when we bring this to the public forum, public meeting, council can be, get an idea what kind of feedback people are giving. And be prepared with some, responses. I think most people that are against it are just not really into the idea of having to carry their own reusable bag. They say, hands up, I'm going to leave Plymouth, or I'm going to shop somewhere else, or this is not something you should be doing, it's too much overreach. So I don't think there's any real environmental consideration from that type of response that people are against. I think it's really just a habit that we get so used to having these plastic bags. People like to use them to line their kitty litter boxes or use them for their dog when they take their dogs out. So I just don't think they're ready to go buy their own plastic bags for those purposes, but there are purposes for there. So then so that first year we got 115, as I say. And then this last mailing, since July, we've received 17 responsible, 1 business, all the others residential. And you can see in terms of our percentages in favor, it's definitely in favor of the ones who commented. Some just submitted the form asking for an email to be notified when the next steps occur, but they didn't make a comment as to yay or nay. So, but if we count the comments that were in favor versus those that were negative, we can see it's 72% and 28%. Again, this is not a thorough survey, not intended as such, just a chance to gather a little bit of feedback so that you'll be prepared for the public meeting. So we expect now with the momentum in Montgomery County and in the state that we're ready for the township to take this to the next step, which would be to have a review of the ordinance and then see if there's any comments on the ordinance itself. But if not, announce for this. I would suggest we go for this November's public meeting, get it started. I think we need a 30-day advertising notice to the public to let them know that we're doing a public ordinance, and then let's vote on it in December. And set an implementation date of March would be probably a good, reasonable target. I can find out when West Norriton and White Marsh, but I think they went pretty quickly with their implementation as soon as they adopted it, so I don't think we have to wait too long. If there are businesses that have a stack of plastic bags, they can apply for a exception maybe, and let them work down their stock. But we'll find that out, I think, as we get feedback as we roll this out. I think the only thing we'll need to do at the township level is set up a web page with explanation of the ordinance and some of the aspects of it, like the web pages. I'll send you a link. Actually, I sent them to Len Hess just to look at, so that he can give you an estimate on what it would take. There's only like a few, a page or two. They aren't very big. I just think we can reuse the content. I don't think we have to make up anything really unique unless you want to. But these are 2 good examples, I think, of web pages that explain the ordinance to the public. And then probably for consideration for those who feel like buying a reusable bag is a burden, I would think that it would be reasonable to kind of have a set of reusable bags here at the community center or at the township building and offer that to people that don't feel like they should afford buying a reusable bag. So that would be our recommendation. That's my presentation, and open for comments. And just to let you know, we also had a poster, Andy Kutronic, on our township, our EAB, put together this nice poster on a little bit of overview of plastics. I'm going to give you a smaller copy for each of you to look at. This is in color. But we just, Phil just put it on the bulletin board, community bulletin board out there in the first hallway. So if you want to take a closer look at it, if you don't guys are not sharing. For everybody that I'll come back if I do time.
So in terms of the implementation piece, do you have like steps and timing? Like thinking about those 3 or 4 months sounds like a lot of time, but sometimes like 30 or 60 days flies by. Like, is there a plan that's sketched out? Like, is there a template for a plan maybe from another township? Like, here's the things that have to happen, here's the timing for which they have to happen. Like notifications to businesses, notifications to residents, reminders, purchase bags, get them at the GPCC. Like, is there a template, or would we be creating that process?
Farron, I don't know if you heard that question, but Lynn Visco is asking about the steps to get our businesses and our residents ready after the public meeting. So if we have the, if IT can set up the webpage by the announcement in November, the public meeting, then it'll be ready for the adoption in December. So if we've got enough information on the web pages for businesses about how they find reusable bags or paper substitutes, I guess, is there much else we need to do between the adoption and the turn on in March, Farron, or do we have a series of steps that we could replicate that others have done?
Yeah, I mean, it really varies municipality by municipality how much you want to do in terms of public education and rollout. One common thing that's done is usually about a month after an ordinance like this passes, a signage requirement goes into effect. So businesses would have to start posting signs at the point of sale, notifying customers of the law, what it entails, and reminding them to bring their own bags. And sometimes businesses just create their own printed out flyers. Sometimes a township or borough will make signage available. You can extend it, have it start further than a month after passage. You can have it start immediately if you want. But that signage requirement is an important step, just because it ensures if you see the signs, the business knows the changes are coming, and that way anyone going to shop, no matter where they're shopping, knows that the changes are happening too. So it's a way to notify both the businesses and the customers. So that's an important step. A website is usually, something commonly done after one of these passes, and there are tons of examples out there, so you can always just crib from another township or borough to steal what they've already done. But beyond that, if you have like a holiday newsletter, if you're thinking about a November, December passage, a holiday newsletter or a winter update or something is always a good way to do it. Some townships have done public meetings after an ordinance passes, just so that people can ask questions, get more information, and figure out what changes they need to make now that it's a law. So those are all things that can be done, but you can sort of pick and choose what you think is necessary.
And so is 3 to 4 months too short a time frame? So we don't have a winter newsletter. We have a spring newsletter, which will probably be out in April. So would it be better maybe to target a June adoption so that we would have that publication in people's hands?
I think 3 to 4 months is probably. I would go 4 months. That's often what we recommend. The shortest amount of time you'd want to go is 3 months. A lot of townships and boroughs have done 6 months. I wouldn't go much longer than 6 months, because then you lose some of the momentum of the public meetings around the passage, and so people's knowledge of what's happening kind of tapers off. I think if it were to pass in December, and then you would do it 3 months following that, or 4 months following that, I think that's a good timeline, though you can also talk with businesses, and if they're struggling to get paper bags in that time frame, or they need more time, you can always expand the rollout or implementation. Some places have done that as well. They set an initial timeline and then needed to just extend it by a month or two for the businesses.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, discussion?
Bill, I have one question for you. Just with the part about the plastic utensils and straws, how is that in terms of in relation to these other 9? Have they done that in Montgomery County? Have some of them not done it? Do you know?
Farron, what's your rough remembrance of the number of them done single-use plastic utensils or straws as a not given by default, but you can ask for them?
Yeah, it's becoming more and more common. A good recent example from Montgomery County is Upper Marion. They did a utensil ban and straws on request only, and that would apply to the entire King of Prussia Mall. So it's a pretty far-reaching policy for them. Upper Moreland has plastic straws available only on request. White Marsh has straws and utensils only on request. I think some of the other ones recently, maybe not Montgomery County, did straws on request. Euclid and Chester County did straws. Different in Chester County did straws. So it's fairly common as a thing to do. Straws and utensils aren't as big of a part of the plastic problem as single-use bags. And also there are certain people who need access to them, which is why it's only we recommend only making them available on request rather than outright ban. But it is fairly in line with your neighbors and with where a lot of these other laws are headed.
Thank you.
Is that helpful?
Good, thank you.
And is another option to kind of see how the public reacts at the public meeting, and then if we need to drop something, we could.
Yeah, certainly. There are several municipalities that decided to, have the option for the community to see what the input is, and then decide, all right, we're going to stick with plastic bags to start. We'll do the rollout, we'll do the implementation, we'll see how it goes, and then we'll return for other types of plastic later on. And later things may gradually. Some communities decide we don't want to make this a long drawn out process. We want our businesses, we think they prefer to just adjust all as one block, not have to keep making change after change year after year, get all of it done at once, rip the Band-Aid off, and so they'll do multiple different types of single-use plastics all in one. So again, it's something you can talk to the business community about work with the community, and see where to go from there.
I think our thought was to try to do as much as possible at one time rather than have to come back and bring it back as an update to the ordinance. It just felt to us like it'd be easier to do this at once. And so maybe this would be an opportunity to hear what the public says at the public meeting, and then, see whether you want to tweak it. Any other thoughts, input? Karen?
Yeah, I noticed, because I've looked up some of our neighbors here, and some of them are only charging 10 cents a bag for the paper bags.
So, Farron, what's
Like
the...
Ambler, I know does, and some of these others, Cheltenham is 10 cents, I forget some of the others. I had a whole sheet, but I also noticed that Ambler's prohibiting the polystyrene containers too for the doggy bags at the restaurants, so.
So what's your guidance on the fee, Farron? What's your experience tell you across Pennsylvania? What's better, higher or lower?
Certainly higher is going to be effective because it'll be a better reminder for people to bring their own bag. We recommend 15 cents as a good starting place. No one yet has decided to go above 15 cents, though other cities and states across the country have done 20 or 25 cents as a fee level. We certainly recommend strongly not to go below 10 cents. 10 cents is the bare minimum where you see a behavior change. Any lower and the fee doesn't become as much of an incentive. Checking my list real quick, White Marsh and Upper Marion both have 15-cent fees. Lower Marion has a 10-cent fee, and Upper Moreland has a 10-cent fee. So it really does vary, but it's also a minimum. So retailers can always charge more than what the fee is set at. So my recommendation is 15 cents. I think that's a good place to go. But if again, you can get business input, and if they would prefer to be a minimum of 10 cents, you can do 10 cents.
I had another question about the reusable bags, the reusable carry-out, so we're not talking about paper bags, we're talking about reusable bags, not less than 15 cents. If we want people to have reusable bags, I know sometimes reusable bags are given away as a promotion. I mean, you go to they're not always retailers, but the auto show, you go, like I went to Dog Days in Ambler, and a couple of the vendors were giving away carry-out bags. So what's the thought behind charging for the reusable bags if a vendor wanted to do giveaways, especially, if it carries their name for the holidays or something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. But not to single this example out, but in Philadelphia, where there isn't currently a fee on paper or reusable bags, Target gave out tons of reusable bags for free just with every purchase. They would just give many reusable bags, and they got littered everywhere. It was hard to go down the block in Philadelphia without seeing a Target reusable bag on the street. So the idea of having the minimum cents applied to a reusable bag is so that they're not being given away willy-nilly, so that they don't become litter and they don't become waste. And also because generally retailers charge more than 15 cents per reusable bag. I know Ambler, I believe, put in an exemption for specific community events or fairs, so that at an Earth Day event or other community things like that, retailers could just give out free reusable bags. So that's one option, or if there's a waiver exemption process included in the ordinance, a retailer could apply for a waiver, I guess, for a specific event. Say, if there's a big auto show going on and a dealership wants to hand out reusable bags with their name, and it's just one event for one day, and they don't want to be charging for it, they could apply for an exemption, and that would be up to you all, I guess, to either grant or deny as you see fit.
That wouldn't necessarily be a point of sale, though. If it's just strictly
Yeah,
a
that's
giveaway,
what-
you're not really
because it's
buying
only applied
your
to a
Toyota
sale.
that day, you're
Giving
just...
away an auto show wouldn't be covered by the ordinance.
I think the 15-cent fee is really if the retailer is giving a reusable paper bag,
No,
not
it's separate. There's reusable paper, there's single-use paper, and then reusable carryout, so...
Is the reusable carryout fair and something, though, that the consumer would purchase at the retailer's price? It's not the 15-cent bag, is it?
So we recommend setting a 15-cent minimum rather than letting a retailer charge any minimum that they want, because then they could charge as low as 1 cent for a reusable bag, which wouldn't be much of an incentive, even though reusable bags tend to be far more expensive, so they're usually sold for 50 cents, $1, more than $1. But we recommend the reusable bag carry a minimum charge of 15 cents and let the retailer choose whatever price they want to sell it for above that floor.
So those three definitions of bags are the retailer's option to provide for 15 cents minimum?
In the model, we have separate provisions, one for the reusable bags, one for the paper bags, one for the single-use plastic. Under both the paper and the reusable, they have a price minimum of 15 cents, and then the plastic is banned completely. And if a retailer wants to charge more than 15 cents for a paper bag, they can do that as well. They're welcome to go above that 15-cent minimum.
Okay. So I would have guessed that retailers would typically provide the recycled paper bag for 15 cents, and that if a person wants a reusable bag, they would probably have to purchase it at a higher cost. Isn't that
that's usually
more
how
typical?
it ends up working out.
More typical, yeah. Any other comments, thoughts, feedback?
Is this model ordinance that you have here, is this something that pretty much word for word our neighboring townships have adopted? Alex, have you?
It depends on the township. A few of them, like Upper Marion, Upper Moreland, Lower Marion, they've all done, White Marsh as well, they've all done ordinances that are pretty close to the model. Some of them, like Ambler, have done, variations on it. Everyone uses some of their own language to keep it consistent with their existing code. The model is meant to be sort of a jumping off point so that you don't have to start from scratch. You have something you can go off of and to try and get as much consistency as possible. So it should look fairly similar to what many of your neighbors have done.
And if we need to compare any, are they fairly accessible from each of the township's websites?
Yeah, and also the Penn Environment's toolkit on, we have a list of every municipality that's passed one, and as their copies become available online, I try and keep links to each one in that toolkit, so it's easy enough to see what they've passed.
So I could forward that to Karen and have her distribute it to you guys so you can review.
It's on all of these townships' websites. I mean, they're pretty easy to find.
Yeah, but I meant if you want somebody to review them and compare them, it's just to make it easier. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, reactions? Are we thinking we're ready to go forward? What's our gut feel?
I knew that was going to be the last question you asked.
I mean, I'm just kind of curious. We've been working on this a year and a half, and just thinking.
But I'll speak openly myself. I mean, I really wish it would just happen statewide, and I know my hesitation initially was just this mishmash of some municipalities doing it, some not. Personally, I believe the trend is going this way, and Bill, I know you wanted to be first. I know.
I'm not.
But
Not thinking that way at all, Chris.
Uh,
I'm willing to be the last if it makes you guys more comfortable.
But
I think that's what the direction you gave me last April was. We want our neighbors. We want to know what our neighbors are doing, and then we'll be ready.
look,
before ready.
yeah, and I, as we see White Marsh, we see Ambler, Upper Marion. Look, Upper Marion is massively retail, commercial heavy, and if it works there, and if it's something that they're comfortable with, and they got good feedback on. I don't really have any issues with it.
So if we want to go forward, I guess the question is, would you guys think that December is a reasonable time, or November to make the public meeting? And do we have enough time for a solicitor review of the ordinance and see if there's any comments? By October, I could come back in October and see what kind of feedback you guys have on the ordinance.
Whenever council gives me authorization.
Anybody else have any thoughts?
I just echo what you said, Chris. I mean, when it first came, we were hoping the state would make the leap, as our neighbor New Jersey did. It's pretty apparent that it's not on their radar, and all our neighbors are doing it. I think the time has come. I just echo what you said, Chris.
And actually, we have a Whitpain member of their EAC here with us, and Ruth is really interested in promoting this in Whitpain, so I think she's going to take our thoughts here and give it back to her EAC this week, and they're going to get on the agenda or calendar to bring it forward at some point too. So we'll have a couple neighbors. West Norriton is real strong. If you want to talk to anybody at any of these townships about it or their feeling about it.
How about Conshohocken?
Conshohocken hasn't gotten very far. Farron, have you heard anything from Conshohocken?
I don't believe I've talked with Conshohocken in probably around a year now. We had some preliminary discussions about an ordinance, but they haven't made any headway yet.
I'm sorry. I think I know somebody on the EAC I could reach out. Yeah, Lynn, you know
I
somebody?
talked to a member of their council, and I know at one point they weren't thinking about it because they just don't have a lot of retail the way we do. I mean, they have restaurants and some small shops in their downtown area, but they don't have like Boscov's or Dick's or Giant. Like they just don't have some of the big stores giving away a lot of bags. So it wasn't really, at least when I spoke to this one person, it wasn't really on their radar for that reason. Whether or not they're thinking differently, let's say.
I could reach out to their EAC, my contact, and see what they're thinking. Is there anything that you guys would like the EAB to do in the next month to prepare? I mean, I sent the West Norriton and Media web pages to Len Hess, so I think after he looks at them, he could probably give you an estimate on how long it would take to post something up on our website. So I don't think it's a lot of work, but that would be another work estimate you'd probably want to get feedback on.
I would just add too, Bill, I like the pairing of a single-use plastic bag ban and utensils and straws by request, which seems like it's still reasonable and user-friendly. If I'm walking Wawa and want to buy a yogurt, like, and there's no spoon, that just doesn't seem helpful. But by request seems like it's a nice move toward being more thoughtful and not wasteful around those things. So I like the pairing of those two things. I don't know if everybody feels the same.
Yeah, I feel very strongly. I think it should be that it's available for on request.
Yeah, I hate going to the fast food drive-thrus and they give me all this plastic and I keep saying, I don't want that straw, I don't want that plastic, I've got my own utensils. So this would help, I think, a lot of discarding things that we don't use much. And Farron, you're getting feedback that the utensils and straw on request is a reasonable thing to do?
Yeah, that's our recommendation. We don't recommend just like an outright ban on plastic straws, especially because the feedback we've heard from the elderly community, from the disabled community, is that they do want those products available if they need them. So having it available on request, it's been shown in other states to be effective at curbing the use, because if you don't really need a plastic straw, and if you don't ask for one, then you don't get one. And so there are far fewer plastic straws being used. But if you do need one, you're able to ask for one and get one, and it doesn't provide an undue burden for you. So it's a good sort of middle ground where you get the environmental impact without harming anyone.
Thank you. So anything else? Is that all you guys want from me? Pretty good for tonight?
We can be in touch if we have any more questions.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Bill, can you hand me that microphone disc?
Yep. Thanks, Farron. Appreciate it. You too. You too. Thank you.
Bill, we'll give you a second to
Yeah, I'll just stick this
break down. Yep. Thought it was over there.
Thank you, everybody.
I just wanted to get you up. All right. Next item, we have our conditional use hearing continued on Monday. Can we discuss this letter now, or should we not discuss this letter now?
Which letter are you referring
This is the one about the traffic study?
You can hold that.
Okay, gotcha. Anything else we need to talk about with that now or not?
No, we'll start at 6 o'clock. I haven't seen any requests for continuance, and their extension is through next Monday evening.
John, we have a big swearing in next Monday.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I should know this by now, but do you do that, or do we have to bring? We don't bring a judge.
District Justice.
We do bring. Do we have that all lined up?
Yeah, our District Justice, Joseph Jeffers.
All right. Budget meeting schedule announcement. Anybody want to read those? Kathy? Kathy, you want to do A and B?
Yeah.
And Alex, we have a tax appeal.
Yeah, so Mike Ryder will handle that.
John, anything else for you? If I could, I'd just like to say a few words on the 11th anniversary for Officer Brad Fox. Thank you.
Chris? Anything? Mr. Manon?
I have nothing.
All right. Let's see. We have 502 West Germantown Pike. That's just an extension?
Yes, because they submitted the land development application at the same time as the conditional use.
That's Lynn? Outback, Kathy? And Aristocare is me. Royal Farms extension request is Nick. And is this waiver request, is that action or no action?
Yeah.
It's for Lynn. Oh, Lynn. That was the one we talked about last month. Is that the same thing? The sidewalks?
I can check on that.
Is it in here? Yeah, it is. All right. Escrow releases, proving grounds is Nick. And Andrew's estate is me. Mr. Wallace.
I have nothing.
Man, you guys are just getting off easy. Zonings, who wants to read zoning?
I'll read those.
I apologize. Going back to the
Sorry.
waiver request for the sidewalk on 2516 Butler Pike.
Yep.
As a result of the presentation last month, is council inclined to change their denial of the waiver for the installation of the road widening curb and sidewalks, or maintain their current? I think this was for discussion purposes as
Okay.
opposed to
I got you.
action, because I believe it would be a resolution that we need to prepare if council is inclined to now grant those waivers.
Karen Bramblett, thoughts?
Well, I looked at some of the additional submissions and I'm well familiar with that stretch of Butler Pike. I live there. And I know the speeds at which they travel on Butler. It sounds like there is no space to put sidewalk and curbing. I mean, it is right on Butler Pike. There is no yard at all. Their front porch is on Butler Pike. So I think I have changed my mind after reading the engineering report. Thank you.
I'm in agreement with you, too. Anybody else?
Lonnie, anything else you need to?
No, I agree. I don't think there's room. The sidewalk would be in the front porch.
So I'll prepare a resolution.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't want to create a hazard.
Yeah.
Sorry to go back, I just wanted to.
No, sorry, I
make sure
was moving too fast. Slow down here. Karen, you said you would do the zoning, correct?
Yes, thank you, Chris.
Mr. Brady.
Three things I would note is we have the outdoor vendor market is moving to the middle school to give us more room from here. So that's the good use of the middle school property, more parking, we get the vendors in. And we brought back two of our holiday programs, the Bus Trip to New York and the Graham Cracker Workhouse from pre-COVID. So it's good to get those back.
But what are they, New York and?
A Bus Trip to New York and the Graham Cracker House Workshop.
Oh, right.
So they haven't been around for a few years.
Yeah.
Who'd like to read the events? And citizen board vacancy announcements.
Do those.
Nicholas. Anything additional? Sure. All
All right. Adjourn.